unregularradio.com.
Back live to HOTHEADS, where activism happens, and Frank Capone is here.
Hey!
Woohoo!
Woo!
Frank.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you.
It's good to be a hothead.
It is. It is. It's good to be here. And after work, come in, and you're like, woo!
Slam in, working for the man, and then come on here and talk some truth.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Big show. A lot of people here. A lot of news, too, like just everywhere around us lately. It seems like Elizabeth Warren stepped in some of it this week.
She stepped in something.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much. Yeah, what did she say? She said that Dan Winslow, Republican candidate for Senate here,
that likes to retweet us.
He does like to retweet us, and I'll be seeing him tomorrow, actually, at Evan Kenny's kickoff event.
Awesome.
Evan Kenny's running for school committee.
We like him.
In Wakefield. Good kid, and a lot of hope for his campaign. I think he's going to do really well. So I'm going to get in touch with Dan Winslow tomorrow. Get him on camera. Get him to say on camera that he's been listening to our show.
Because we know he has been.
We know he has
He's been quoting Frank Capone.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So,
saying that liberty wasn't a dirty word,
yeah,
right?
he did say that.
Yeah,
and we were talking about Elizabeth Warren.
We were. I sidetracked. I'm sorry.
What did Elizabeth Warren do? What did she say?
Elizabeth Warren said that Dan Winslow supported both unrestricted gun ownership and the legalization of marijuana. So she insinuated that he supported the stoned gun owners, running around stoned with guns.
Yeah, it was kind of a
essentially,
grandmother thing to say. It was like you just lost all your coolness factor.
She
lady.
totally lost her cool.
You're just like someone. I'm just gonna say we'll start. We're gonna have a speed round. But my speed round answer to that is she should have hired a pothead to write her pot joke. Like seriously, she just lost all her potheads on that one.
Yeah, she never kind of had me to begin with, but.
Yeah, I mean, how many of the 65% that voted for decrim, the 63 that voted for medical, how many of them voted for her though?
Well, that's the thing.
A lot.
Like, what happened to being a servant and listening to the will of the people, right? So clearly, the constituency that she represents supports, not only decriminalized marijuana but medical marijuana,
yep.
And eventually, in what
and
2 years,
the polling shows that even more support legalization than medical right now.
Yeah,
in Mass. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
The most recent poll that was done statewide. I helped raise money for that poll, and it showed that more supported legalization than medical, basically. And if not being even, so it doesn't really even matter. But she came out and supported medical marijuana. She did, and she got some. I think she got some support from the marijuana reform community from that. But to remind people that she's against legalization, what a dumb move.
It is a really dumb move, And I'm curious to how she would feel about. The UN coming out last week and saying to the Justice Department that they wanted the Justice Department to crack down on both Washington State and Colorado for legalization, saying that it was in violation of UN treaties and things like that.
Yeah, it would be nice to find out where she actually stands on that issue.
I'm sure she's lockstep with the UN. This is wrong.
And the thing about too that she brought up Dan Winslow, especially, it's like you're going against the. She's basically giving a certain amount of her audience that actually is sympathetic to Dan Winslow. Like Chris Ferrone came in last week, a very well-known liberal writer, and he had praise for Dan Winslow's campaign and some of the things that Dan Winslow's been saying. And it's like, it's so foolish for her. Like, it's not even a totally right-wing hack guy that's an easy target. She actually went after the guy that's more progressive and a rising star, in my opinion, right now. He's had a good couple weeks, I think. I think he's building something. You can see it happening on Twitter. I'm watching his Twitter feed and the amount of people who are interacting with him over the last 2 weeks since he responded to us, ironically.
Yeah.
I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
Who knows? I don't know. Got a little THC bump over there?
Yeah, I think he might have. I mean, I think it also opened up his mind that he we pushed him and he responded, and I think that was a good thing for him because he's really opening it up and running the campaign I think he should. Having said all that, there's a lot of news this week.
There is a lot of news.
We got Leah Cole, we got Evan Kenny having a big event tomorrow that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk more about that. But we also have a bunch of panelists who've been waiting here for a while.
We do.
And they're unbelievable. This panel is unbelievable.
It's going to be a fiery day. I know. I can kind of feel it. I got a little goose pimple going on right now.
I know. I haven't even smoked weed yet, and I feel like I'm there.
You're there already?
Oh, yeah.
You're just high on life?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Politics is your crack?
Yep.
Excellent.
So why don't we introduce them? Or maybe we should have them introduce themselves.
Let's have them introduce themselves, because they know themselves better than we do, right?
And tell us, like, sometimes we say, do you label yourself? Who do you work with? How would you describe yourself? Would you describe yourself as liberal, conservative,
neocon,
Tea Party, or none of the above? Like, I basically say now, I used to say I was a libertarian. Now I don't even want to say I'm a libertarian. I want to say I am Mike Can. I support the Occupy movement. I support the Tea Party. I support conservatives, liberals. It's really about the issues. So call me Mike Can.
And I guess I'll go next. I'm Frank Capone, and I also support the issues. And I support what I think. And so I approve my own messages. And, yeah.
I'm Ron Patenaude. I'm president of UAW Local 2322 based out of Holyoke, Massachusetts. We represent about 4,000 members in the higher education, early education, human service fields. I'm an old hippie, so I'm pretty far left of center, probably one of the only labor people in the state that actually supported, and not only supported, but testified on behalf of the transgender right bill. So I don't know how much further left I can go before I fall off something.
And you have we must note, for people who aren't watching this on video later on YouTube, that you're wearing a Johnny Cash shirt with a big middle finger.
He is.
Yeah, that's a cool shirt. I love that
pretty
shirt.
Sweet one.
Johnny had some good stuff to say.
Awesome.
And I'm Brad Marston, a Republican political and digital media strategist based here in Boston. And to say I'm looking forward to the panel is an understatement.
My name is Ariel Shearer, former writer for the Boston Phoenix. I'm a freelance writer now, so covering medical marijuana and then some politics, net neutrality, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Sweet.
It's a good panel.
Thanks everyone. We got Casey still in the studio here
Casey.
too.
I'm Casey, and I research stuff still.
She does the news.
She's
here.
still reading.
Yeah. She goes after Bruce Tarr.
Right? Her buddy Bruce Tarr. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. This is going to be an awesome day, and we're gonna kick it off with a lightning round like we did last week, right?
Round,
yes. All right. What do you got? You got to get the first one there. You get the first word.
Yeah. La Meridien. I just came for a protest there Thursday. The workers are trying to get some representation over there. 70% of them voted to be, basically organized to have a voice. And maybe I'm saying this wrong. Maybe Ron can correct me, but I interviewed a young woman who was on the protest line, on the picket line outside of there. She's a worker at La Meridien, and she explained, I think perfectly, the reasons why she's on the picket line. And to me, it's 70% of your employees vote for something. You should listen to them. It seems like the management is totally blocking them on their right to collectively bargain, organize, to even assemble and have a voice at the table. My question to everybody is, do you support the workers? Do you support the workers at La Meridien? I actually, as a libertarian, right? I've said I wasn't a libertarian, but people consider me that, and I've said I'm a libertarian. I support unions, and I support these workers 100%. I'm wondering I want to hear from libertarians, 617-606-3700, voluntarists. I want to hear, anarchists, do you support...
Voluntarists.
Yeah,
Just call yourself an anarchist, man.
Yeah. Do you support the unions? Do you support these workers? And I want to hear from the roundtable. Do you support the workers at La Meridien?
Well, this is Brad. I'll jump in, and absolutely. I'm a big believer in private sector unions.
What about public sector?
No, because there's no inherent conflict of interest between. Who are public unions protecting their workers from? Us, the people that are their employers. I don't know if you need to protect public workers from the people.
Ariel, you want to weigh in?
I respect the right to unionize. We'll keep it there.
Well, I'm a president of a union.
How is this one going to come down?
But let's put it in perspective, okay? We've got politicians kind of here, and we talk to politicians. In the political world, a supermajority is 2/3, so that's only 66%.
Exactly.
You have 70% here who want a voice at work, which they're entitled to under the National Labor Relations Act, Section 7. The only reason they haven't been busted, fired, or screwed over is because of that collective action, was what you get through that National Labor Relations Act. So, yeah, I support them. I wish they'd join a union. I wish they didn't have to, but they're never going to get anywhere as long as they're not part of a bigger organization, is what I have to say.
And let me ask you, well, Frank, do you
No,
want
Casey, I think was going to jump in there next.
Just for some context on this, this is largely because the climate in Boston is that a lot of hotels are being sold or changing ownership, and in doing that, they're actually changing their labor base and bringing other people in to be trained by the people who currently work there. So I'm absolutely for this. Like, I mean, the labor rollover isn't helping anybody. We're losing trained workers, and we're getting less trained people coming in at a lower wage, and it's dropping everybody down.
Frank, you want to weigh in?
I think these people have every right to unionize. I think that they should be allowed to, and there's absolutely no reason that the company should be allowed to have such a protectionist policy. And I've gone past the time for the lightning round.
Well, Ron wanted to follow up. We'll let Ron
I just want to just say that, do we need to protect public workers from the public, us? You're damn right we do, because the Massachusetts state legislature, both Democrats and Republicans, have coerced and collaborated to move those jobs into the private sector, where they become crappy jobs with lower wages, lower benefits,
And they get payoffs.
and they get and it's just well, let's not go there. But I mean, that's really a big problem. You have 80% of the state, I heard this from Auditor Bump, 80% of the state contracts in Massachusetts are with private vendors. So all of those jobs that probably many of them used to be state jobs with decent benefits and wages are now private sector, where I can tell you, coming out of a Catholic, although not Christian hospital, I was paid crap and treated like crap until we unionized
Yeah.
in what was probably once a state job.
Yep. And let me ask you this question. Like, it seems like lately when you hear the politicians debate about unions, it's always about right to work, and that seems like where it begins and ends. Why aren't we hearing from, why isn't Ed Markey down in this campaign, like down on the picket line? Why isn't Stephen Lynch? I know that they work with unions, but why aren't they even more vocal about, especially what's going on in Boston with these hotel workers? And furthermore, where's Dan Winslow in this? Where are the other Republicans? Why don't they ever support unions in any way? It seems like, Brad, I'm asking you this specifically because I don't see, like, I want to support Ron Paul and Gary Johnson and these guys. I don't like where they stand on right to work. And then I never see any support. Like, it seems like they're so frightened of this George Soros union thing that they think that they're the enemy no matter what. And in so many cases, it's like, these are workers. These are jobs in Massachusetts. When I hear this young woman talk about how she just came from one job that's part-time to a full-time job, and she's working probably 50, 60 hours a week, and she can't afford health insurance, and I say, I know. I see it happen over and over again. And a lot of us can't even get 30 or 40 hours. It's just so, like, when you have a big hotel chain like this, these jobs should be unionized, especially when they're not being treated well, and 70% say we want a spot at the table. Where are the Republicans? Where are the people running for office on this? Why don't they speak on this?
Well, I guess speaking in general for Republicans, we have a tendency in campaigns to carpet bomb instead of smart bomb. We think we can come in every 2 years, run a few $1 million worth of television ads, and sell our story, as opposed to, whether it's social media, being on a picket line, etc., creating personal relationships with people that then go out and basically be ambassadors for your ideas and your brands in their communities. As Bobby Jindal says, at some point the Republicans are going to have to stop being the stupid party. And I think leaving so many people on the margins is part of that stupid strategy.
Well, I've heard some really good stuff lately about how the Republicans want to talk about what they need to do to win. I can give it to them in just a few words. Learn how to lie better. Learn how to lie better, because that's essentially what. And I'm a lifelong Democrat, but I'm a Roosevelt Democrat. I'm not a Clinton Democrat. I'm not a centrist. I'm way left of center, and I believe that we have social, nets that need to protect the members of our society who have less than many of us. That said, lie better, because the Democrats have been lying to our asses for years. They've just gotten so good at it that we believe them all the time. And that we believe that they support unions. We believe they support immigration. We believe that they support all of these things that they do until we say, could you vote on it?
Well, I'm sorry, cut you
go
off,
for
but
it, man.
I was going to say, like, don't you think that with the Democrats, kind of the reason why they're able to lie so much better is that they like cloak themselves in the goodwill or you know, of the people, right? So all the things that they stand for are for the benefit of the group, of the collective, and so they have compassionate views, right? And so when they get up there and they lament on their
Bush was
beliefs and
compassionate,
everything-
remember?
He was very very compassionate.
until,
Absolutely.
until he bombed all those babies.
Well,
in
that's the
Iraq.
thing, you know, like Bush, that's a good example, because Bush would go to Walter Reed and he would sit with, you know, the folks who got their arms blown off and their legs blown off and, you know, have these horrible deformities now because of the fact that he sent them to war, and he would thank them and he would sit there and he would cry with their parents, but at the end of the day, he didn't give a shit. You know what I mean? He was using those people for fodder to commit it to achieve an agenda.
I don't know. Yeah, I think he
And then
might
for a
have believed.
PR thing.
Well,
Public
yeah, that too.
relations,
But
yeah.
I mean,
I think Bush
that's
was a
what's
true believer, though.
Well, I
I do.
mean, just
I
to
do.
bring it
Santa
back
Claus?
to
Yeah.
the hotel workers.
Yeah, I really do. Yeah, you know what I mean?
I mean, along those lines, to bring it back to the hotel workers, like, I mean, if you think about it, 17,000 people affected, or however many people affected, where do they lie in the voter constituency? Like, where are their districts? Like, it's Roxbury, it's Mattapan, it's like Mission Hill. It's these areas where it's traditionally low income, high minority. So who's that voter base for, and do they really need to waste time on it? And that's Wiggly Fingers' ironic waste.
Yeah, there's no political will, basically. You know, there's no political collateral.
I think that there's plenty of political will. I think that in terms of like what somebody like Lynch or Markey is going to get out of it isn't going to be there for them.
That's what I meant to say. Yeah.
When we had public sector workers whose health insurance rights to bargain over were destroyed, it was by a predominantly Democratic state legislature led by a Democratic governor, and that was a travesty. And the idea that happened in Massachusetts gave fodder to the rest of the right-wing Republican Party in other like places and right-to-work states and places that want to be right-to-work states to go after that, because, hey, if it happened in Massachusetts, we should be able to do it too. And it was garbage.
Let's talk about one of the things you brought up, Ron. Right to work. What does everyone think about right to work? I am against right to work. I think it's right to break a union contract.
I'm for right to work as long as the union is not required to provide benefits to someone that isn't paying into the union.
I'm for right to work legislation. I just think it's amazing that, you know, we as taxpayers have to pay the expense of collecting dues for unions. If unions are such a great idea,
How are we?
why aren't
How are we collecting? How are we paying the expense of collecting dues? I don't get that.
because it's deducted out of their paychecks?
Just like the
Oh,
United
the
Way is, and
employees.
just like any
The
other
employee-
contribution that
the
they can
employee,
make through
but
that.
the employee took a union job. You took all the benefits of being in the union. It's like saying like like, you know, what happens when the Attorney General, Martha Coakley, right? She's an attorney. She runs for Attorney General. She wins. The day she gets in the office, she says, I'm no longer going to pay my attorney fee to be an attorney in Massachusetts. Does she get to keep that office?
Well,
You know what I mean? It's very similar. It's like you're getting all the benefits, but you're not.
can I get off the leash here in a
Except
minute?
that you don't. Except that if you can have the job without being a member of the union, that's where the difference is.
In 2 words, bullshit. Because here's where the difference is. The
Actually, I
difference
think
is
that's one.
it's hyphenated, I think. Here's the difference. The difference is that if I want to join the Chamber of Commerce, I got to pay a fee, don't I?
Yes.
And in order to get the benefits of belonging to the Chamber of Commerce, I have to pay a fee, don't I?
Yes.
Okay, so when I belong to a union, I shouldn't have to pay a fee?
Exactly.
Why?
I know.
I get the benefit of that.
I
And
know.
what you just said, Sir Frank, is right. You want to have that right to not belong to the union? Then you don't get the benefit. You don't get the wages.
And the
you don't
benefit
get
is
the
the
stuff.
job. Like a lot of places.
That is
Yeah.
often,
Yeah.
part
because
of it.
the job is been negotiated.
Martin
through
Luther
a
King had it
contract.
right.
You have to fill it.
It neither guarantees work nor rights.
And it also breaks the union. Like, let's be serious. Like, what does this do?
what
When you
it's
bring in
intended
right
to
to
do.
work into a state, the unions are already dying. We all know this.
I ain't dying.
Well,
We ain't dying.
yeah, all right. Well, I know Ron's not dying.
He's got his
And
shoes
I
off.
know
He's ready to
that
go.
you know what, there is something going on with the
Why?
unions, and that's why I'm speaking on this, because
Mm-hmm.
I could feel it coming back. It's more needed than ever, and this is why it's a big subject right now for me. But at the same time, like, right to work destroys the unions. Like, we know this, and I think Chris Ferrone also made a great point. Like, how many crybabies are truly out there that don't want to be in a union? Like, can't we just pay their union dues somehow?
Well, I think that there's, like I had spoke about last week, that this is Frank, that we should probably start announcing who we are. At any rate, I digress. So, like, what I was talking about last week, where, like, I worked at Fenway, right, and you were required to pay into the union, but you got nothing out of it. Like, the union rep, like the union steward at Fenway, literally stole money from my girlfriend who was working there also at the time. Took $20 out of her pocket, you know? So you pay $300 to be in a union at Fenway, and you get nothing. You get nothing out of it. That's all I have to say about that. So there are, actually, I'm going to say a little bit more. So there are actually,
lightning round.
So there are actually instances where you're required to pay into the union, and you get absolutely dick for it.
Okay, so there is not. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, well,
No.
I mean, that's my concern with unions is looking at you've got people galvanized over issues. You tie in their paycheck with that, and it's really easy to manipulate a group to support certain things, to strike. And I mean, that's people should have the right to join or not join. And if they
do.
If they don't, right? Well,
They
right,
absolutely
but-
do. I can read you verbatim almost the National Labor Relations Act,
Right.
Section 7, which says you have the right to form, organize, and join the union of your choice. You then have the right to engage in collective concerted activity. You also have the right not to do that.
Exactly.
Bang. Okay? But guess what? I have to, as a labor representative, if one of the people that doesn't want to belong to the union, doesn't want to pay dues, hates the union, hates me, thinks I'm just union scum, gets their ass into a jackpot, I get called, I have to represent them. So if I got to provide services, what other fucking, excuse me, I slipped.
You can say that.
It's all right.
I know
No,
I
you
can,
can say
but
that
I'm
here.
trying to be good. I'm really trying. Which I'm not known for. So if I have to provide a service, tell me one other friggin' service that gets provided that doesn't have to be paid for.
I mean, aside from Obamacare?
Someone's
We're all
paying
paying for that.
We're all paying for it.
We're all paying for it.
Well, no, you don't need to get in. I mean, let the worker who gets into, as you say, jackpot, then start paying for your services. Sort of like now, where you wait till you get sick and then you buy insurance.
That's my question, though. Where are the conservatives? Like, you're comparing what he just said to Obamacare, that situation. Where are the Republicans on this issue, then? You know what I mean? Like, I just...
And you do, there are three things you can do. Three, count them, 1, 2, 3. You can be a member, you can be an agency fee payer, which means that you only have to pay the cost of the services. My organization, and it's not mine, it's my members. It's a very democratic organization. Trust me, I stand for election every 3 years. And I serve at the pleasure of my members. If I don't do something right, I won't be president. So that's the second, agency fee pay. Once a year, we have an audit done. We have biannual trustees audit done. There is a figure that is all of my time, my staff's time. Every penny we spend is put into 5 categories on an LM2 form on my voucher. And it's divided up into what those costs were. And at the end of the year, those are all figured. And whatever, we have a 2% due structure. Whatever percent of the cost of providing services, representation, and organization is what we can charge for, and I think union overhead. So instead of 2%, it's like 1.58 now, I think. So that's what you pay. Or if you really, 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 really don't want it, you can actually, there's a way to be a non-payer.
Have you had to deal with people like that? Have you? Who's your jackpot that's in your mind?
Who's my jackpot?
Yeah, that
I
you-
mean, I have them all the time. I have people who will, complain about the union. They get in trouble. I come there. I manage to save their job, and suddenly I'm a hero.
Well,
you
by
know?
complaining, do you mean they're not paying and they're not doing?
No,
what
I mean that
required, or
they don't
just bitch about
think
it,
they don't
see the
support
value.
it. They don't see the value of it. They bitch
They
about it.
complain
They
of the
bitch about
dues.
things that are beyond my control. Many of the organizations I deal with are regulated by an agency. I deal with every agency under the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, from the DPH, the Department of Public Health, DMH, Department of Mental Health. Who else? DCF, all of them. The EEC, which is the early education childhood, right? So the daycares and stuff. We just had a 10-day trial with them, with one of my shops, where they basically were screwing workers by not allowing them to join the union, where they would have made a lousy $1.25 more, but they misclassified workers. This is a huge win. They had 4 lawyers at the table this little child care agency. This is the other thing. So much of this stuff that used to be state workers and stuff has gone into this privatized hole in the ground where money is pissed away. My friggin' CEO at the hospital I used to work at made $900,000 a year. He couldn't find his ass with both hands in a search party, and he wouldn't know which end of a thermometer went in which orifice. But he made $900,000, and he was not even a health care provider.
Yeah.
He wasn't a nurse. He wasn't anything but a CPA.
So with all this like talk of like privatization, and you're saying like 80% of
State money
is basically like private organizations. So with that being said, I mean, there's new legislation coming through that wants to push the bid from 500,000 to 3 million on private organizations. How do you guys feel about
under
that?
the Pacheco Act?
Yes.
I think it's bullshit.
Yeah.
I think it's also, I can give you the link to a State House report from 1993 that I just found when I was researching an article I'm writing for Labor Notes, in which the State House, the House of Representatives, right up the street here, said in 1993 when they closed a bunch of state hospitals that it was a fiasco, that it cost millions and millions more than they said it would, that the care wasn't being provided, that the workers weren't prepared and trained in these private places.
And it's
this
true.
is just bring it down to today, and you've got something called community-based flexible support, which is where workers go out into the community. You had two human service workers killed 2 years ago, last month, I think. Stephanie Malton up in Revere, and a young man named Jose Rodan, and I can't remember what town, at a homeless shelter. In both situations, it was because they were understaffed, and it was criminal, because some CEO, some freaking nonprofit corporation, which is an oxymoron, wanted to make a couple more bucks in his salary.
They get paid for offering the least amount of services, get the most profit, and it's true. Like so much of the mental health, they close all these hospitals, and now the people in the street with no service. It's like, wow, that's what we want to do. We should also go into some other subjects too. Some other issues.
I have something that I wanted to bring up. So this week we're now this week's wrapping up, but 10 years since the war in Iraq, right? So let's shift focus a little bit. And a lot has gone down. Many lives have been lost. Over 1 million Iraqis are dead. We have tens of thousands of wounded. American soldiers, and we've wasted a lot of American lives and treasure. I mean, so I'm kind of giving it away a little bit. But this gentleman named Thomas Young, who was mortally wounded in Iraq, is on his deathbed, and he wrote a letter that I'd like to read a little bit of excerpt from to kind of give some background. But I'll basically sum it up in the interest of time. So basically, he writes that this is to George Bush and Dick Cheney, that you may evade justice, but in our eyes, you are each guilty of egregious war crimes, of plunder, and finally of murder, including the murder of thousands of young Americans, my fellow veterans, whose future you stole. So that's a little excerpt from the letter, and that's basically the breadth of it,
And is that like where is that found?
You can find that at leaksource.wordpress.com. And
is it getting a lot of views? Is it like a viral thing on internet?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure. It was posted the beginning of last week, the 19th, and it doesn't say how many hits the page has or anything like that. But I'm just curious.
It's all over Facebook.
Is it all over Facebook?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So apparently it is all over Facebook. And I guess 10 years after, where did you start? What was your view when it first started? And where are you now? Ron, right?
Yeah.
Excellent.
I know
got
I
his
might
name right.
not look it, but I'm old enough. I might not look it, but I'm old enough to remember Vietnam, and I actually had to register for that little fiasco. Luckily, my number was not pulled. In fact, it was like at the end where I think we were the last folks that had to register, and then they kind of said, oh, yeah, we're going to get the hell out of here. We're going to declare victory and leave, basically, is what they did. So,
mission accomplished.
So I think that was a fiasco that everybody seems to forget. This country is very good at forgetting fiascos. That was a terrible, and the more that comes out about that war, about the atrocities that were committed there, that's all over the news again. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but My Lai was like the tip of the iceberg, and there's all kinds of stuff coming out. So that's crazy. I had a nephew who served there, a good kid, and, he's got some issues, and I understand why. But, I mean, it doesn't matter what the issue is in this country. We have a short freaking memory. Anybody else remember the S&L crisis from the late 80s, early 90s?
Yep.
And then we wind up in this latest fiscal mess. Oops, same shit, different day.
I mean, I've actually been thinking a lot about the Iraq War lately. I've met some really interesting local personality. Is this lightning round?
Yes.
Oh shit!
That's all right. Go ahead.
It's not the lightning round anymore.
It should be.
This is more like a long thunderstorm.
30 seconds.
I just think of the little kids that I know are living in Boston right now, getting serviced by the Children's Hospital because they were blown up in a taxi in Iraq by U.S. troops that thought they were in a car bomb. We can expand later, but
The U.S. military has two jobs: break things and kill people. When you ask them to do anything else, nation build, etc., you're asking them to do the wrong thing. We went in, thought they were WMD, found out they weren't, should have turned around and said, oops, our bad, we're gone.
I mean, when it first started, I was definitely in a much different place than I am now, coming from like very conservative Southern Oregon 10 years ago. But definitely now my thoughts have absolutely changed, and I really think that it's time to just get the fuck out.
But war is our culture. Like, this is such a big part of our culture.
I know.
It's just to do it.
Well, I think the other problem is we make it it's all volunteer, so it doesn't touch anybody or that many people. And we also, I mean, when I said our job is to break things and kill people, go in, win, get out. But rules of engagement are such that it just kind of, it drags on. It doesn't seem all that bad.
And I think it's all done for purpose. I mean, I think that's the bigger thing, that this is all about the economy.
Yeah.
All of this stuff for the last 10 or 15 years has been about the economy and the debt. I want to read instant feedback we just got. It was, greetings. Outstanding that you have Ron Patenaude. Did I say
Very good.
on your panel today. I am a registered nurse in Northampton. Ron helped us over a year ago to organize. We were subjected to lies, arbitrary decisions by a not-for-profit agency. We have been stonewalled at the bargaining table. Ron has helped us change the culture and force this agency to be honest and stop some of their lies and abuse. Sweet Jesus, we are a group of nurses caring for a marginalized group of individuals. Unions are essential. Thank you, Kelly. And then she quotes Martin Luther King. So, good.
Thanks, Callie.
Glad to hear people listening. 617-606-3700.
Join the conversation.
Yeah, saying some good things about our panelist, Ron, here. Ron, I
There
knew you
could
were
be
gonna
other calls, trust me.
So, political campaigns. I'm going to do a speed round just on Ron. Just one question.
Tell me the rules on the speed round. Is it like 10 words or less? What is it?
We try to stick to quick. I mean, we're expanding a little bit on some
Get the
of the subject-
stopwatch ready. I can talk faster than you
we
can.
need
When,
to
I-
stop.
when I
We'll
start
have one
doing this to
eventually.
you, that means move quicker.
Wrap it up, B.
But I just want to ask you a couple questions. When you for U.S. Senate, when it was Elizabeth Warren versus Marissa DeFranco,
DeFranco, yeah.
who did you support?
The UAW, and this is where I have to give a disclaimer because all of the opinions expressed here may not be that of the UAW.
Oh, I love that.
Or the AFL-CIO.
Or
any
anyone.
other, or anyone.
They're only Rons.
They're Ron's, although it's shared by a lot of people. I supported Marissa because
Oh,
I
yes.
think that some of the stuff that came out recently about how like some unions are pissed that there's not support for a certain candidate who is a union member, and that one of the excuses is that people in Washington are telling us. That's what they did with Elizabeth. Hey, Elizabeth turned out okay, but I was pissed off that there was no primary. That was done because of the state party, yada, yada. So this time they're allowing a primary. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Marissa a lot too. I supported her. Speaking of Elizabeth Warren, let's two questions on Elizabeth. Number one, I know. Number one is, how do you think she's done? Like, since she's been elected. And number two is the statement that she made against Dan Winslow. It was a joke. She's making a joke at St. Patty's Day breakfast about Dan Winslow. But what do you think about the joke? And what do you think about her so far?
I think that her joke was terrible, and I think that, I mean, when she was questioning, at the banking committee, that gave me a glimmer of hope, when she was looking like she was going to go tough on banksters, I guess would be a better thing to call them. But other than that, I mean, kind of, wet noodle.
Agreed. She kicked some ass, or at least she portrayed kicking some ass. But then she voted bad on a recent bill that was, or it was, I don't know if it was binding. It was about the medical devices and how it would have, she voted bad on that. As far as I'm concerned, I worked in the medical field. They're robsters, banksters, whatever you want to call them,
robber barons, I guess.
And they need to lose some money, and so that patients don't have to pay as much. And she voted bad on that, I thought.
Luckily, as a Massachusetts Democrat, there is no such thing as a bad joke because the media just ignores it. And as far as how she's doing, come on, she's 3 months in. It's incomplete, but she's a big proponent of Dodd-Frank, which doesn't at all address the problems of the banking industry or of our financial industry.
I also think she's early in. You should all read David Bernstein's final Phoenix feature. It was going to be a cover story about E-Dubs Goes to Washington. So that's on the Phoenix website now.
We gotta check that out. I actually been meaning to I'll read that tonight.
It's interesting that you mentioned the medical devices, the non-binding decision, because Markey hasn't voted on that yet. And I think it's interesting to look at that because he's sort of up there being radical. But
what is the real issue on that? Like, I don't even know.
That it'll cost the medical device industry too much in profits.
And they are strong here. That's probably some localism there and local.
Yeah, there's a little arm bending going on.
Yeah.
Pulling out a paper.
Ariel's got the glove out.
It's a 2.3% tax on revenues, not on income. It's just, straight out. It's basically government taking 2.3% of a company's revenue straight on the top, regardless of whether they make a profit or not.
Okay.
My late father used to say, liars figure and figures lie, and you can make anything look like you've lost money or made money. And I have seen outfits say they've lost money when they've been making boodles.
Well, doesn't that sort of legislation, though, kind of incentivize that kind of creative accounting, though? Because, like, if a company is going to get 2.3% taken off the top before they even, it goes in their bank account, then doesn't that incentivize them to go find a crooked CPA?
Well, it's like saying that you're going to incentivize people to move their money and their business to the Cayman Islands, which they also do.
Yeah, I know. But that's what I'm saying. It's another example of that same thing.
Incentivizing GE to spend billions of dollars developing green energy. We sure wouldn't want that, right?
Well, instead we do it with nuclear.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk
corporate
about
welfare.
Well,
We're going to talk about corporate welfare. Woohoo!
Let's talk about the green movement. The green movement. Everyone's talking about wind and solar. But the real choice, I think, has to be nuclear, coal, or gas right now. Oil. What do you support?
No me gusta nukes.
Yeah, no nukes. I'm against the nukes.
I don't think you're going to see a new nuclear plant.
They're talking about it now.
It takes like 20 years to build them.
I know.
Right, and the other thing is that they also ignore the decommissioning costs.
I know.
If they're ever decommissioned.
Which will be publicized. It'll go from private hands to public hands at that point.
They also ignore where the nuclear waste actually goes.
Yeah.
Like Fukushima Daiichi,
it just went out to sea.
Yeah, it's only in Alaska. It's in your salmon. Don't worry about it. Just keep eating the sushi, all right?
All right. Yeah, I know. I can't even fish anymore.
You don't have to cook it now.
That's a good.
You get a lot of good vitamins called PCBs. So we've been going for a while. We should probably take a break. We got a lot more. We're going to ask about more about the Mass Senate campaign. We got to ask about the candidates.
Yep.
Maybe Ms. Cole.
I got some questions about Homeland Security. I've got questions about immigration.
Oh, immigration.
Yep, I've got all kinds of. We should have probably segued from workers' rights into immigration. But hey, what are you going to do?
Yeah, 617-606-3700 if you want to weigh in. Maybe we'll ask about Anonymous, Aaron Swartz, Barrett Brown.
There you go.
All those things,
Two hotheads.
Where activism happens.
On regular radio.